The wait is over and the day is here. The world's greatest college weekend is upon us here at Bill Armstrong Stadium at Indiana University. The fans are piling into the stands and are ready to see a new champion crowned in this historic 30th running of the Women's Little 500. With no defending champion, the field is wide open and first place is ripe for the taking. Some podium regulars and some teams trying to put their names into the record books for the first time will all be flirting with the checkered flag. 30 years, countless stories, and we're ready to watch these women go 100 laps to see one team's dreams come true. Hello everyone, welcome into the broadcast booth. David Sugarman alongside two-time Little 500 champion, Little 500 Hall of Famer. The resume kind of speaks for itself. Caitlin Van Kooten. Caitlin, honored to have you with us today.
So excited to be here.
And what a time it is to be at Indiana, to be in Bloomington specifically. There's just such a buzz and atmosphere when Little 5 is around. I mean, I've got goosebumps up here. I can't imagine what the riders are feeling down on the track.
Yeah, this day's fantastic as a rider. You practice all spring at this track, but it looks nothing like this. So you wake up this day, you're so excited, it feels like Christmas. You come to the track, the trophies are out, everything's dressed for the race. It's tremendously exciting. And we were down there for a while talking to riders and coaches, and you can really feel that nervous, excited energy down there. It was fantastic.
And we took a lap around the track and left the third member of our crew there. Let's check in and see how he's doing with our pit reporter, Pat White. Pat?
Thanks, David. As you can see, the weather is absolutely ideal for the riders today. It is currently 58 degrees, and we expect it to stay around there throughout the entire race. We had a little bit of rain coming down before the race, but I talked to some riders, and they expressed that is exactly what they want. They like the rain coming down because it keeps the track clean and sturdy, and as you can see right here, the riders absolutely love it, and we expect a fast race today. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Pat. We'll be checking in with Pat throughout the race. So perfect track conditions, and we talked about a couple of podium regulars at the top of the broadcast, specifically Delta Gamma and Kappa Alpha Theta 1 and 2 respectively. They've won 4 out of the last 5 races combined. What should we expect from that matchup today, Caitlin?
Yeah, this is a real battle of titans today. On paper, they're a real cut above all the other teams, and I really like Delta Gamma this year. They have the outstanding finisher in Kristen Bignell. She won missing out. She was there for the sprint last year and nearly missed it, just barely missed it. We've been asking the field if she's there, is she going to win the sprint? And people are saying yes. And most importantly, Kristen believes if she's there at the end, she can win the sprint. Love that attitude. And she has 3 great riders backing her up. And this is really a team that performs under pressure. They just set a new track record for quals, which is probably the most high-pressure event. And then they also won Team Pursuit in a head-to-head matchup with Kappa Alpha Theta.
And you mentioned they won the spring series, so they'll be donning the white jersey today. What can we expect out of them?
Yeah, Delta Gamma is really going to have to battle Theta today. So Theta is a strong team. They are wearing the white jersey, which means they got the most points in the spring series. They have the fastest and second fastest women on the track in Rachel Brown and Grace Bennett. So they could really pull off a 1-2 punch near the end to break away and eliminate the field sprint.
So talking about Delta Gamma again, one of the main contenders today. IU Sport Media's Nicole Christine spent some time with 2 members of the team who are sisters by both initiation and by blood. Check it out.
Growing up, Kristen and Lori Bignell shared a bathroom and a love for the outdoors. Now, the sisters share a college campus, a sorority house, and the title of Delta Gamma Little 500 rider. Kristen, a senior, said that having Lori on the team has helped them both grow as riders.
Not only do I coach her and motivate her, but she also motivates me to, really do my best and work hard at every practice.
Kristen said that Lori has always looked up to her as the older sister. But when Lori began riding for Delta Gamma, Kristen was studying abroad and wasn't there to help her sister learn all of the new tricks. So when Kristen did come back and see all of the improvements Lori had made, it made the entire experience that much more rewarding. But, as with any team dynamic, there are also challenges involved. Lori, a sophomore, expressed her personal struggles with being on the team with her older sister.
I don't want to let Chrissy down, so I feel like being on a team with your sibling is hard in that way because you're always kind of hard on yourself.
But those pressures don't get in the way of the sisters' close bond. Even after long days at the track, Lori said that the two rarely tire of spending time together.
We definitely love to hang out together. Even though we're at IU and we bike a ton together, we still hang out a lot together. Like last night, she asked me to go Target with her.
Grown up, but still living under the same roof, the Bignells give the family aspect of Little 500 a literal meaning.
That's a great piece there by Nicole. Thank you so much. And the bond between those sisters, I know we talk so much about winning and losing, but the bond that these teams create, especially, like you said, by blood, is really beautiful.
It is. And actually, all riders, you train so much and spend so much time together that ends up being a really close group of friends.
It came down last year to a photo finish. Delta Gamma was part of that photo. Let's take a look at how the 29th Women's Little 500 went down a year ago.
The 29th running of the Women's Little 500 took place on a beautiful spring day in Bloomington, Indiana. Pole sitter Kappa Alpha Theta came into the race looking to win their third in a row, trying to be the first team to do that in the history of the Women's Little 500. It was a fast-moving race thanks to a lack of major crashes and caution flags, with several teams exchanging the lead throughout. One incident in the first turn around lap 70 did take out several teams, but none of the leaders were affected. It would come down to a sprint between the two riders who finished at the top of individual time trials, Tabitha Sherwood from Team Phoenix and Kristen Bignell from Delta Gamma. And it was Tabitha Sherwood barely edging out Bignell at the line, giving Phoenix their first ever Little 500 victory. Delta Gamma finished second, while Teeter crossed the line third. Phoenix won with a time of 1 hour, 9 minutes, 11 seconds. It was the fastest women's race since 2006.
And see, so it should be another exciting finish this year. Let's talk about, we already talked about Delta Gamma and Kappa Alpha Theta, 1 and 2, like we said, the podium regulars. Who else do you think could come off the pack in the top 10 that has a chance to be first for the checkered flag?
Yeah, there really are a few other teams that have a really good shot at this. So I really like ski. Megan Hubricks and Ivy Moore are really strong riders who can do long sets. And I think we're going to find that their spring series results maybe don't reflect the strength they have for more endurance sets. So I think they might surprise us. I also really like AO Pi. This is a team that was finishing in the bottom third of the results, and they vaulted to a 5th place finish last year. They were there for the sprint. They maybe looked a little inexperienced, but I think they're going to be here at the end again, and they're really going to look like they've been there before. They've got 2 top ITT finishers in the top 10. I think Ali Opal could really pull something off great.
Yeah, AO Pi, their rise has really been astronomical. A few years ago, they were 24th, and since then it's been 21st, 7th, and like you said, last year, 5th. So maybe a spot on the podium this year with the checkered flag. Who knows?
I think they'll definitely make the podium, and I think they've got a shot for checker.
And now we're going to head down to the third member of our group, Pat White, who's got the ski coach Jim Kirkham with him. And we don't have him just yet. Pat's going to grab him in just a moment.
Well, let's talk about Phi Mu.
But let's talk about Phi Mu, because I want to ask you about a dark horse pick. Phi Mu won the Dixie Highway Award last year. That's the biggest jump from quals to the finish of the race. So last year, Phi Mu qualified 25th. But they finished the race in 6th place. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. We're going down to a third member of our crew, Pat White, who's with the ski coach and Jim Kirkham. Pat.
Thanks, David. I'm here with Coach Jim Kirkham of the ski club team. And Coach, you have been a part of Cutters coaching and a lot of winning with that organization. So how does it feel to be a part of ski and helping them?
It's an honor to be asked by ski to kind of fill in and help guide them and get them to this position. I love this race just as much as the men's race, so it's a thrill. It's an honor to be here with them.
Now, if you don't mind, we talk a little bit of strategy. Do you guys have a set strategy going into this race?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to win the race, so we want to position our riders towards the end of the race and take advantage of everybody else and put our rider across the finish line first.
So do you feel good about where you are today then for the race?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good day for ski.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thanks, Pat. Clearly not short on confidence, but you need to have that type of confidence going into the race.
You do. I think you can lose the race by being too afraid to go out there and really just go for it. So I love to see that sort of confidence in a team, because that's what it takes to win this race.
Need to be confident, need to know the rules. Now we're going to take a look at the rules of the race and what each team has to do throughout the race to make sure that they finish. outside. Turn left and go hard. I like that. That little 500 can be an emotional roller coaster, and every rider is going to have their ups and their downs. But one rider in particular took a pretty tough challenge and made it into a triumph. Carly Murata has more.
Come on, you got it!
4-year rider Lexi Kohler is a leader on the Alpha Chi Omega team.
I've known from literally the first time she got on a bike that she was born to be a bicyclist.
But behind that smile is a memory from the 2015 race that she will never forget.
Lieberman starting to make a push, and everybody's starting to charge, and there's a pileup! There's a pileup!
There was a team who was 4 laps down that was trying to stick in the peloton, and I ended up getting sandwiched, and I had gotten a rock lodged in my throat, and I was like trying to get it out, but the whole time I was also thinking like, oh my gosh, like I just ruined the race.
And I didn't see the crash. So the first thing is I was utterly confused as to why she wasn't coming around.
Lexi was one of the few riders who remained on the side of the track after the accident. She was taken to an emergency clinic to clean several wounds, but did not suffer any serious injuries. When it came time for next year's race, support from not only her teammates, but other teams competing, motivated her to keep on pedaling.
One rider in particular, Tabitha, came up to me and said, you need to get the crash out of your head because you're a good rider and you're letting that stop you.
In just a few short weeks, these stands will be full, the stakes will be high, and Lexi will be experiencing all the emotions as she competes in her final Little 500.
She wants it so badly. She's given up so much to be on this team, and I know this is what she loves to do. It's what we all love to do.
But even with the joy of Lexi's comeback comes mixed emotions. After all, she's graduating.
And I'm going to be sad, definitely. Every year I'm sad because we've had a senior every year, so it gets sad when you lose a senior, and it'll be difficult to leave a team that I've been a part of.
Yeah, such a really powerful piece, and Lexi Kohler, what a comeback, and really an AKO in contention today.
Yeah, they have a shot at being a top 5 finisher for sure. If you look at their top 4 riders and their ITT times, they have the horsepower to be there near the end. Maybe even a podium finish, and that's just fantastic to see a senior come back and continue to lead the team, and recover after a wreck like that can be pretty scary.
Absolutely, and can you talk about how much, because she didn't suffer any severe injuries long term, but the mental of coming back onto the track and knowing that it could happen again?
Yeah, I mean, it's always something when you go out there, you don't know if your team's going to crash, and you spend so much time in the race trying to position yourself to stay out of that. So I'm sure she has a bit of a cinder tattoo somewhere in her leg, but I'm happy no one was seriously hurt in that. Hope for a pretty safe race today. The track looks good. It's a little windy, so we might see some crashes when they come around the turns. You come around that turn, and all of a sudden the headwind hits the pack, and they slow down. And sometimes that's when we see a crash, so we may be seeing it in turn 3 today.
Yeah, and we talked to the riders, a lot of the riders before the race, and they were all really ecstatic about how the track looked. They said it was really dusty during the week, and now it's really just about perfect.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So a dusty track, you can kind of slide out in the corners, and it affects your breathing too, because that dust gets up in the air, and you're breathing so hard to put out those watts. And you start really feeling that. So this, as a rider, is the perfect day. Might not be the greatest spectator weather, but this is what riders want.
And I'm sure the fans will still have a good time with that. As we now check out what the flags mean. There's several different flags, so we're going to take a look at that and what each one means individually. As we take a look, the green flag, of course, starts the race up. The yellow flag means there's an incident on the track, a crash of some sort. They'll slow down, and riders will have to maintain their position. And then, of course, red is the race is suspended. All riders have to stop. That usually has something to do with the weather. And as we go on down the line, getting towards the bottom, the white flag, the start of the final lap, and of course the checker flag. The race is complete. It really doesn't need an explanation.
Yeah, I mean, that white flag, when you're a rider and you see that white flag fly, it's just it's all out. That's the last lap. Last chance to make it count.
And so let's talk about those weather conditions. We talked about the track being perfect, but there's a little bit of wind, there's a little bit of rain. How much does the wind and maybe even this much rain, a little bit of a drizzle, affect you as a rider?
So I think unless it starts raining harder, the rain won't be a factor. Wind really can be a factor for the race. So if it's a really windy day, it makes it significantly harder to break away from the pack. So if you're sitting in a pack and you're behind a rider, you're spending maybe 30% less energy going the same speed. And the windier it gets, the more energy savings you have from drafting. So that makes it really hard for a team to break away and finish alone. So windier days, we tend to see a sprint finish at the end.
Yeah, and talking about that wind, so you said the wind could make it a hard finish. So what, like, I guess what would be the polar opposite? What would be like the worst type of track condition?
The worst type of track is super windy, dry, and really hot and sunny. That's a hard day to race.
And so this is a pretty good combination of, like, while the track is perfect, the wind, because I don't think we want to see these riders get it done easily.
No. But it'll be good. You don't want to see it too windy because I like to see it in attack and a solo venture, but I think this is going to be a great day.
Great, and so and I want to go back to what we were talking about before, a potential dark horse, FIMU. They qualified 25th last year, finished in 6th place. This year, again, they qualified kind of poorly, 17th, but I was talking to them a few weeks ago. They said, we're getting on that podium, and we're trying to finish first. How can you talk about one FIMU and how the qual position maybe is a little bit overrated or overvalued?
Yeah, so quals is interesting because lots of times you have your top teams finish in the first few rows because it's something you really practice and you want to get out there in the front so you can avoid crashes. But Abby on FIMU, she's claimed quals is not her thing, and you know, it's okay. It's one high pressure event and they made the race. They have 4 solid riders. They're not going to have a hard time getting to the front. So after about the first 2 laps, it's not going to really matter where they qualified as long as there's no crash in the beginning of the race.
Now, you mentioned you think they'll get to the front pretty easily, or at least that front pack. What is the difference in strategy when you have to start and, you know, make that quick comeback to get in it for the next 95 to 98 laps?
Yeah, you just really got to make sure you have a strong starter who preferably has race experience because it's a little bit harder to pick your way around a pack than to start out in the front. But they've got 4 solid riders and they have race day experience, so they should be able to do this.
Yeah, experience so big, and now as you see the bikes getting laid out on the track. And Caitlin, I just got to ask you, I mean, here we are just minutes away. They've trained the entire year leading up to this. What is the rider mentality right now as they're sitting waiting to mount these bikes?
Yeah, oh my gosh. You wake up this morning and the day feels like it's going so slowly. And then at this moment, when you see the bikes being laid down, you get this rush. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's here. And your heart rate's really high. You're excited. You're nervous. This is really that moment, and everyone's waiting to hear ladies mount your Schwinn. So it's gonna be exciting. We're gonna start seeing the the starters get to their bikes.
And now we're gonna send it down to Pat White, who's got an interview ready in the pit. Pat, what do you got for us?
Thanks, David. I'm here with Rachel Brown of Kappa Alpha Theta. And Rachel, this is your first race here at the Little 500. How are you feeling?
Honestly, I feel ready. More than anything else, I'm just grateful to be here. It's been a long road to get to this point.
Now the track, we talked a little bit before the race. It seems like it's perfect. Are you happy with what it's looking like?
Yeah, I put my hands down, full palms on the track earlier, and said to myself, like, this is really good. We were concerned earlier because prior in the week, the track conditions were pretty poor, so we're very pleased with this.
Awesome. And this environment behind you is pretty rampant. How does that help you throughout this race?
I'll be honest, when I'm on the track, I don't hear anything, but throughout the season, having all the support really means the world because obviously we face difficulties, going through and training all year, so having this support system means the world.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Best of luck. Back to you, David.
Thanks so much, Pat. And so, Caitlin, as we see the riders getting ready, as you said, mount your Schwinn, and as the invocation, getting ready to go down on the field, the pace lap getting ready. It's really an exciting time as we see cameras and cars and all things all around. It's really a sight to behold, especially if you've never been to a little 500. You know, it's really a cultural experience more than just a bike race.
Yeah, and it's a tradition that stays the same pretty much every year, that the intro looks very similar. So it starts happening, and you can feel the race getting closer and closer. You hear all the same songs. You see the balloon release. It's a wonderful moment, and I loved what we saw, Pat, his interview with Rachel Brown. You see that Theta team is looking really, really calm, cool, and collected. They don't seem that nervous. They seem ready to do this.
All right, now we're going to head down to the pit and the track for the invocation ceremony and all that goes with that.
Let us pause for a moment of silence in honor of the late Alan Smith, a member of the Little 500 community. Eternal and ever-loving Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to gather together for this competition. We ask you to bless us with dry and favorable conditions today. We thank you for the blessing of these athletes with their athleticism, discipline, and drive. We know that all these gifts come from you. We thank you as well for all the hard work that has gone into planning and preparing for this event. God, who have created all humanity to strive for excellence, please send your blessings upon our riders today. May they compete in a spirit of joy and respect. Please keep them safe from all injury and any other harms. Please bless all of us who watch today's competition and who celebrate on this day. May we celebrate in joy, safety, and prudence. And may we come to know better the wonders of your love and majesty through the experiences of this happy day. We ask all this in your most holy name. Amen.
Presenting your colors today, the Pershing Rifles Color Guard from Indiana University's ROTC program. Indiana's Pershing Rifles is a competitive drill and honor squad which consistently receives high marks in national competition. Watch skyward for parachuters from Skydive Indianapolis carrying flags into Armstrong Stadium. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating America's freedom and those who now protect it. We especially honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, IU Jacobs School of Music student Brooke Vance will be presenting our national anthem today. Brooke is a junior from Houston, Texas, majoring in vocal performance. She also is a member of Sigma Kappa sorority. Please rise, remove your caps, as Brooke performs our national anthem.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free?
Skydive Indianapolis, ladies and gentlemen.
And we're back here, David Sugarman and Caitlin Van Kooten, bringing to you for the IU Student Foundation the 30th running of the Women's Little 500. Just a few minutes away from the race. We are taking in some of the pre-race pageantry right now. Caitlin, from a rider's perspective, what was your favorite part of the pre-race pageantry?
I love Back Home Again in Indiana. That's a great part. They'll start singing it when the riders are doing their pace laps, and it's very sentimental. Right now we kind of have a lull though in the pageantry, and you see these starters that have warmed up and now they are just sitting on the sideline looking a little cold, trying to stay warm. You see some of them jumping around a little bit.
And you mentioned it's clearly a break in the normal routine of things. How much are the riders, does that affect you mentally? And how much the race is as mental as much as physical? Because so many athletes are really creatures of habit.
Oh, wow. Look, we've got our parachuter coming in now.
Yep, as we see the Soda parachuting in. The American flag trailing from the behind always gets a good round of applause from the crowd. And I think that was worth waiting a few extra seconds for.
I agree. Sometimes they cancel it for bad weather.
And so we were talking about, I'm interested to hear, as the riders had to sit a few extra seconds there, I know that won't decide what's going to happen on lap 99, but how much of the race is mental as much as it is physical?
Yeah, it really is. You have to be prepared, and
we're going to go back down to the track to hear Caitlin's favorite song, Back Home.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamore for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamore for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
welcome back to the booth. David Sugarman alongside Caitlin Van Kooten after hearing back home again in Indiana. One of the traditions here, and the pre-race pageantry getting underway as we see the cyclists getting ready to mount their bikes, get ready to mount your Schwinn bike, as they'll say in just a few moments. We'll hear from PA announcer Chuck Crabb, who's been at this for 40 years, really one of the staples. And I want to talk about, as we saw the clips of the crowd going around, and how much this race brings people together, it brings the community together, and not just Greek life, because that's what a lot of people think about when they think Little 500.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of independent teams with really strong fan bases that they're really able to build.
And so Lily King going to be the guest of honor.
Our very own Olympian.
Lily
Hey
King
everybody,
on the
it's
mic now.
super great to be here today. Thank you for having me. So glad to have you all out on this little bit of a rainy day. Just a few words of wisdom. Race hard, keep your heads up, good luck, and Godspeed. And now, the words we've been waiting for. Ladies, mount your Little 500 bicycles.
A reminder to the riders and officials.
Lily King, the grand marshal for the race, telling the riders what they've been waiting to hear for an entire year, to mount their bicycles, and now the pace lap, and we are just moments away from the real fun getting underway, Caitlin.
Yeah, we'll see. They will maintain position in the starting grid here for the next 2 laps. And then they are going to get the green flag, and they are going to go flat out to try to string out the pace and make it as fast as possible.
And as we take a look, row 1 is we have Delta Gamma, Kappa Alpha Theta, and Alpha Omicron Pi. In row 2, it's the Ski Club, Alpha Chi Omega, and then Crew. Row 3 consisting of course, Caitlin's old team, Teeter, Alpha Sigma Alpha, and Ride On. Row 4, Alpha Gamma Delta, Kappa Delta, and Sigma Kappa. As we head over to row 5, Theta Phi Alpha, Alpha Delta Pi, rocking the candy stripe jersey, and Mel and Zona cycling. And then following them in row 6, Delta Zeta, Phi Mu, and Independent Council. Rounding it out in row 7, CSF Cycling, Gamma Phi Beta, Kappa Kappa Gamma. And then in row 8, AZD, Phi Gamma Nu, one of the new teams, as well as Delta Sigma Pi. Row 9, Delta Phi Epsilon, Wiggett and IU Nursing. And then row 10, Alpha Epsilon Phi, Alpha Phi, and one of the new teams, maybe a fan favorite, the Sweet Potato Club. After them, row 11, Sigma Delta Tau, and Camp Kesem Cycling, another new team, 4 new teams in the race this year, Caitlin.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And the team's getting ready to come around turn 3. As the rain falling a little bit more than anticipated, maybe coming into today. See how that affects the riders going throughout the race.
This is the moment.
And as we see the car go by.
They know once they come around, they're going to be going green.
That's right, one more lap until the green flag is waved. We'll see if the team in green in the front row, Delta Gamma, can get it done. They came in second a year ago. Kristen Bignell loses to Tabitha Sherwood on that last sprint by 0.015 seconds. That's the margin for error sometimes in this race. It's the difference between holding up the trophy and the agony of defeat.
That is true.
And the car makes its way off the track, and now it's just time for the bikes and their riders making their way around turn 3, holding their position, but not for long.
Oh, what a moment. We're going to see all those girls in solid colored jerseys really work together to make this a safe race and string it out quickly.
The green flag, it's been in the holster for the entire year, and now it's out, and the race is underway. And you can see already teams shifting position, already going to that inside part of the track. Probably the best place to start and stay, right, Caitlin?
Absolutely. So you'll see right now they are strung out in single file. Anytime you see this, it's going really fast. So the front of the pack is in single file, but behind that, we see a pretty big bunch because there's a lot of teams that qualified further back that are trying to get to the front. So Delta Gamma has just pulled off. They're letting Theta take their turn. Theta's doing their part and pulling hard.
And I think that's something interesting that certainly I learned. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's a very help me to help you mentality for a good portion of the race. At what point do you think that turns over to it's every woman for themselves and, you know, the end goal is in sight?
It really depends on the race, but typically if there's no crashes, you'll see these top teams work together to try to eliminate the rest of the pack for probably the first 20 to 30 laps.
And it really speaks to the camaraderie that's made throughout the year and that these teams know each other. They're not just meeting girls from the other teams on race day.
Yeah, that is interesting about the Little 500 because there's not a lot of other sports where you practice with your competitors every day of the week. So they are all here at the track Monday through Friday, doing sets, getting to know each other, riding together, maybe doing a little unofficial competition on some burnouts. But so they all really know each other quite well at this point.
And we see AO Pi has taken their turn out in front now. The ski club trailing just behind them.
Yeah, so we'll see. They're taking the lead. We see Delta Gamma and Theta riding quite smartly. It's a little bit dangerous to get further back than about 5 or 6 positions in the women's race.
And the rain really starting to come down now. It's not too cold. It's about in the mid-50s, but this rain, as the rain continues to come down, how much does that affect the riders?
It depends. It can be a little harder to stay warmed up if you're on the trainers and you're not riding. If you're riding, it might be a little bit harder to see. You got to be a little bit more careful about your handlebars not being slippery, especially on an exchange.
As we see early on in the race, a couple of teams already getting lapped here. It's the nature of the beast of the Little 500.
She needs to move out.
And talk about, you were saying that she needs to move to the outside. So clearly we talked about the top of the pack. There are teams that are going to be at the bottom by nature. So what can you talk about when you're towards the bottom? You still want to go as hard as you can and get as good as a finish as you can, obviously, but what do you need to do to be a safe rider and help the other teams out to make the race run smoothly as we're coming up here on lap 4?
Absolutely. So if you're lapped, you can ride in the pack, but if you're unable to keep pace with the speed of the pack, you should move outside to allow the pack to pass on the inside. That looked just a little bit scary to me because she slid through the middle of the pack, and I saw nursing try to have to make an adjustment to try to avoid it. But thankfully nothing happened, and we are still under green racing conditions.
Yeah, as we go on lap 5 here, the race now well underway. 3.5 minutes, almost 4 minutes into this one.
And is that Lee Dukeman on the bike for AO Pi. Very strong rider, top 10 finisher in ITTs. They are easy to spot with those neon shorts. Now we have Megan pulling through.
Yeah, Alpha Omicron Pi, we mentioned, finished 5th a year ago. It was actually their first top 5 finish ever. We mentioned they've made such an ascension over the last few years. Since 2013, they've gone from 24th to 21st to 7th and now to 5th.
Yeah, interesting. We see things slowing down a little bit already. So none of the top teams want to take too much time in the front pulling and expend their energy before the finish. So it looks like we have cooperation breaking down a little bit. We still have a really big pack with the lead riders.
See AO Pi still out in front. Looks like they're letting Kappa Alpha Theta through, and Kappa Alpha Theta in the white jersey because they won Spring Series. Continuing, Kappa Alpha Theta finished in 4th a year ago after they were going for the 3-peat. Kappa Alpha Theta really a regular in the top 5, and regular champion, if you will.
They are. The house has a ton of history with the race. they founded the race, really. They're the ones who instigated it, and I don't know what it is about that house, but I've never seen a year where they didn't have a quality team that had a chance to win.
And Kappa Alpha Theta, a 6-time champion of the race that we just mentioned. They won the spring series, and of course, all that history in 1987. Martha Gillum and her teammates tried to actually qualify for the men's race. They came close, were nudged out along with a few other men's teams. And then the next year, it was so interesting. I got the chance to talk to Martha, hearing about the process they went. They were like door-to-door salesmen trying to convince people to make a team. And now here we are 30 years later, and people couldn't imagine the weekend without the women's race.
Exactly. It is almost hard to believe that was only 30 years ago that women were not riding this race. It's a really inspiring story of Martha and the other Theta women, and actually all the women who stepped up and decided to make a team for that first race. Wow, you can really hear the crowd. People are excited to be cheering on their team.
Yeah, the crowd's certainly getting into it. Kappa Alpha Theta actually came in second in that first ever race. Wilkie Sprint won that one.
All right.
As the rain continues to come down here. And it doesn't look like it's slowing up anytime soon, as we just got a forecast from one of our producers up here in the booth. And it is going to be a wet one. I thought we would be good and taken care of under this tent, but starting not as dry as I'd like to be.
It does feel like it's gotten colder.
As we're coming up on close to being double-digit laps now, lap 9. As we see this candy striped jersey there, Alpha Delta Pi making their first exchange. And can we talk about that? Looked like a pretty strong exchange there. What goes into making a good exchange, and how can they really make or break a team's success?
Yeah, there's two types of exchanges. There's a full exchange where the bike never stops moving and you just change riders. That's what we saw there. There's also a bike-to-bike exchange where the rider going out has a bike of their own and they're tagged, and then they run and jump on that bike. That one's a little bit more conservative, a little safer for the race, but definitely not as fast as the full bike exchange.
And can you talk about, like we mentioned at the top, you're a 2-time champion. What was your team's philosophy going in on what exchange would you do, and how many exchanges? You only need to do 5.
You do only have to do 5. You'll typically do 3 to 4 sets per rider, so you do definitely more than that. We see Ski right now, they did a big burnout, and you can see them coming in for a bike-to-bike exchange. Really well executed there. That's what you like to see for an exchange, is a really strong burnout, which means that your rider coming out gets a good gap on the field. So Megan did that, and then when her rider got the tag to run and jump on her bike, she didn't have to go very far to catch up with the pack.
And now we're going to go down to a third member of our crew, pit reporter Patrick White. Pat.
Thanks, David. Sweet Potato Club is one of the 4 new teams in the women's race this year, and as you can see behind me, they have the couch potato jerseys on, and they are an actual IU club here at IU, and their goal is to be the fan favorite. They have gotten almost every single team on their side to ride with them and just have a fun environment around here at the race. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Pat. You mentioned the Sweet Potato Club, one of 4 new teams, and we were talking to them, and it's great how, because like I said before, I think a lot of people associate the Little 500 too much with just Greek life, and that's clearly not the case. The Sweet Potato Club, it was a club that was just founded last year, in the fall of last year, and they said, well, we made the club, why don't we do something else with it, and made a Little 500 team. It's great to see the rest of campus getting involved.
Exactly, yeah, that's really the spirit of Little 5, is how can you get a group of women together and go do something exciting. Let's check in with the race. All right, we see from the back, we can see the pack. It's quite bunched up. This is a lot of riders to still have with us with 10 laps down.
And do you think that speaks to the depth of the field or the conditions? What do you think that is as we see team racing out in front? That's A.O. Pi.
Yeah, I expect A.O. Pi is going for an exchange. We see that they have a rider in their pit actually getting ready to take this exchange. The field knows that they're strong, and they're sort of marking her a little bit. They don't want to let her get too big of a gap. But I don't think it matters for her. She got it handily.
And the exchange coming here.
Wow, great exchange.
A nice clean exchange there for AO Pi. And an excellent burnout there. And can you talk about, you mentioned about the pit, and something that is so vital is that you can choose your pit position based on your spring series and your qual times. Where is the ideal pit position, and where did you like to be when you were riding?
Yeah, so teams are able to pick their pit based on their qualification order. So our number one qualifiers, DG, got their first pick, and they picked right after the start-finish line. They've had that pit a couple times, and I think that's a position they've won from before. This is one of the more superstitious elements in Little 5. The top teams like to pit all along the front line so they can see each other, see when the other ones are exchanging. I personally really like that pit on the end of the front stretch. You have the whole straightaway to get out to your pit, and then you are clear to your right side.
That is for now coming up on 16 laps in. Kappa Alpha Theta and DG still 1 and 2. As now looks like Theta and DG takes back the lead, and DG heading for an exchange, and they get it right on point. A good exchange there from Delta Gamma.
All right, we have 16 laps down for our leaders.
And going back to the discussion of the pits, we were talking to some teams on the track beforehand, and I thought it was interesting. The team that qualified 6th, Crew, went to an unorthodox spot that we weren't really expecting out in turn 3.
Yeah, they said that's where they've been before, and they really like that spot. And if you look in the stands, we saw a shot of them earlier. They've got a huge fan base, so they're able to spill over into the stands next to them. Fantastic to see.
Yeah, Crew with 3 top 5 finishes. They were 3rd in 2015, so why mess with success?
Absolutely. There's some teams will qual well and actually pick a pit on the backside in a sort of an attempt to be sneaky. You can do things without being seen, but it is a bit of a riskier move, I think, than to be with all the other top leaders.
And so now the leaders on lap 17.
All right.
As we see the Sweet Potato Club trailing behind. And now coming around turn 4, heading almost the 5th away into the race. And now that we're really sort of into the meat of the race, those initial nerves have probably worn off. What is that middle of the race philosophy like now that we're sort of into the meat and potatoes of it, so to speak?
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. A lot of riders have not done their first set. Most of these teams are on their 2nd or 3rd rider. So you really settle in once you get through a full rotation of riders. There's still that 3rd and 4th rider in the pit feeling the nerves about going in, especially rookies where this is their first race. So it looks like we have Kristen Bignall looking very comfortable there in the pack. We also have the Theta captain, Evelyn Malcolm.
As we see coming around here. Coming around turn 4 now, coming up on almost the 5th of the way through the race. Pack's still pretty well together right now.
It is. We'll see if the leaders try to pick up the pace and thin this out a bit. We see AO Pi is making me a bit nervous. They're pretty far back in the pack. Hopefully she'll start moving her way around and working to the front.
And you mentioned, so they're a little further back in the pack right now. Do you think any teams go in with the philosophy that they're not going to come straight really, really fast and go, go, go out of the gates, that maybe they're going to conserve that energy for later in the race, or do most teams not carry that philosophy?
Yeah, every team's really trying to save their energy for when it matters. So we see Theta had a great burnout there. They're doing a full bike exchange, perfectly executed, right in with the pack.
So we're now 1/5 of the way through this race, lap 20. We thank you for joining us for this historic day, the 30th running of the women's Little 500. David Sugarman alongside 2-time Little 500 champion Caitlin Van Kooten. Does a smile always come across your face when someone says that?
Yeah, I love this race. It's fantastic to come back and watch it. So many things stay the same. The riders change, the teams who are on top change, but the spirit of it's always there.
We now see Alpha Chi Omega burning out, coming in for an exchange. a little bit slower, but certainly clean. We see Ski making a change right after them.
Yeah, that was a short set for Ski. So typical riders will do probably 4 to 6 lap sets. Riders with a bit more of a long distance endurance will do 8 to 10, and you have a few people who can do as much as 20 to 30 at a time, but that's a pretty rare special rider who does that.
And let's talk about the training regimen, because you mentioned some better at long distance, some better at short, but go for speed. Is that something that you work on specifically, or certain riders are just going to have certain skill sets and that's the way it is?
Everyone can work on it and get better at what's not their natural proclivity, but you'll have some people that are just naturally sprinters and might never be able to do that really long set. But a winning team, really, you need everything. You need people who can really absorb the laps and make sure that the sprinter's fresh. So it's interesting the way you build a team, and it's helpful to have riders who are pretty different across the board.
And it's worth mentioning, while it is in some sense it's dubbed as an intramural sport, nothing about the way these women and tomorrow the men train is intramural. They're really like Division I athletes, especially going into that second semester when the race is really creeping up fast.
Yeah, there's a whole range of how teams trained, but the teams that are in contention today, they'll have been riding their bikes on the road all fall, and then they've spent all spring on the track and on the road, doing as much as 200 miles a week in the fall.
It looks like FIMU is now out in front, so we mentioned that they were a bit of a dark horse, as now they fall just behind that. Coming into the race, last year they qualified 25th, they finished in 6th. This year they qualified 17th, and here they are at the front of the pack right now.
Yeah, they like to joke if they just improve their quals to race time the same, they'll have a negative position. So they were really excited about the race, and I have to say they might have the strongest Insta game on the team track.
That might be true, and the colors really go with their motto. I was talking to them, and they said last year they called themselves the Syracuse Orange because of Syracuse's improbable Final Four run last year. I brought up maybe they'd be the South Carolina of this year. They said no, we're sticking with the orange. Their uniforms are orange, and here they are in contention on race day.
I would say they definitely have a winning spirit.
FIMU, led by senior Katie Capusta, another IU Sports Media student, as well as a fantastic rider. We see her.
Wow, this is interesting. Who's leading the pack here?
And we see a crash on the back stretch in turn 3.
Oh no.
Trying to find out who's involved for you. A crash in turn 3. It looks like
it doesn't look like we have any
was safe. It looks like the leaders were safe there, and we mentioned the wind and the rain on those turns is really where you see the crashes, especially with the conditions, and we saw it there right in turn 3.
Yeah. So we are still under green conditions. Sometimes after a crash, they will go to yellow, which is caution. The riders will ride slowly, which allows them to attend to possibly injured riders.
And can you talk about, so when a team crashes, and assuming and the race keeps going, there is no stoppage, what is the philosophy to get back into the race?
If you crash?
Yes.
Oh boy, you have got to, first of all, if you're the one who crashes, the first thing you have to think of is, can I get up and can I ride this bike into the pit? The other option is to run a bike to wherever the crash happened, but that can take so much longer than that rider just riding it to the pit. So sometimes you'll see people riding a bike where the handlebars are all twisted to get it to the pit and exchange. But then after that, you've got to go all out and try to catch that pack as soon as you can.
And talk about the differences between the men's and the women's race. The men's is 200 laps. If there was a crash in lap 26, there would be a lot more time to recover. For the women, almost already a third of the way through the race, the margin for error seems so much smaller to me.
It really is. The women's race is much faster. There's not that 50 to 60 lap section in the middle where they really settle into a pace.
As we see coming up on lap 27 now is where the leaders are at.
We see Delta Gamma going for another burnout here.
As Delta Gamma coming around turn 3, headed into 4.
And we see everyone sort of marked her. This is not that big of a burnout for Delta Gamma right now.
And here they come slowing down, and here comes the exchange.
We've got Ski pulling through. That looks like it's Ivy Moore. As we see Ski pulling out in front, and now A.O. Pie coming around the backside. Oh, what a burn. That's what you want to see. By the time she came around the leaders, she was already going so fast, there was no way for them to grab her wheel or really mark her. They're trying, but she really got away there.
Yeah, really a fantastic burnout coming here from A.O. Pie, it looks like. And now the exchange coming in. They're in pit 5. And a clean exchange for Alpha Omicron Pie.
Yeah, we saw that excitement from Ivy Moore. This is her first race, I think first set. So she saw that, really chased it, and she almost dropped the field doing that.
Now, I'm honored to be here in the booth with already two-time champion Caitlin Van Kooten, but even another more honorable guest, Martha Gill. Martha, it's fantastic to have you here. If you don't already know, we touched on it earlier in the broadcast. Martha was on the Kappa Alpha Theta team, Kappa Alpha Theta wearing the white jersey today, that tried qualifying for the men's race in 1987 and then started the women's race the very next year in 1988. Martha, fantastic to have you on with us.
Hi, thanks to be here, David.
So, Martha, 30 years have passed since you started what this, this has turned into. It's called the Greatest College Weekend, and really it wasn't a weekend before that you added the women's race.
Well, I think there were other events that, I think it was called the Greatest College Weekend, but I think we enhanced it with a much-needed women's race.
And can you talk about the idea, before you went and made a women's race, you tried qualifying for the men's. Can you talk about that process and leading up to that and what that was like and what the reaction from men's riders and people around campus was?
Yeah, well, I had 3 friends, and the 4 of us just liked to ride. And we had a lot of really, really good friends who are men riders. And we just set off in the beginning to do team pursuit. And one thing led to another, and in January of 1987, we decided to go to the Mass Riders meeting, and lo and behold, we walked in and all eyes were on us because we were the only women in the room. And we had a lot of support from IUSF and our fellow riders, the guys that we knew, and we attempted to qualify, and actually did qualify for the men's race on our 3rd attempt, but we got bumped. But one thing we like everybody to know is that 4 men's teams were bumped also. So that's our claim to fame. And we had a really viable, very, physically able team. So if we made it into the race, we would have gone for it.
And now you come back here 30 years later, the race still going strong. First of all, what are your thoughts on the race so far today? Of course, we mentioned Kappa Alpha Theta, a favorite.
Oh, well, I always like to see that. But I'll have to tell you, I think all these women, from 1 to 33, how many teams do we have today?
We have 32.
32.
Actually.
They all are very courageous, because this isn't an easy thing to do. It's not a one-day event. It's a day in, day out event, and you really have to rise to the occasion and be committed to doing this. So I'm happy to see almost a full field today.
And we talked about how many fantastic, strong women are in this race. Can you talk about what you think the race has done for women's group on campus, whether it be sororities or other clubs? We talked about a new team today is the Sweet Potato Club. All sorts of women's groups on campus are getting involved.
Well, I think the thing that resonates with people about this race, men or women, is that it gives people opportunity. 1, opportunity to learn about themselves. 2, opportunity to lead people and lead their team. 3, to become part of a community. And 4, to become part of something that's bigger than themselves, and that's super fulfilling.
As we coming up now on lap 34 for the leaders. David Sugarman alongside Martha Gillum again, who helped create the first ever women's Little 500. We're here for the 30th today. Now, talk to me a little bit about, you talked about how much a lot of your friends and people on the riding committees embraced you. Was there any pushback?
Oh, there definitely was. When I was a sophomore, which is 1987.
And as we see a crash just after the finish line, Kappa Alpha Theta, one of the leaders, is involved. So Martha, hold your breath.
All right, they are back up and riding though.
See, like Caitlin mentioned, the team's all getting back up quickly. As you see, Phi Mu is involved in the crash. They're trying to get a rider up there quickly. They've been left behind here, and Phi Mu has a lot of ground to make up now. We mentioned Phi Mu already qualified 17th, had to come all the way back. Now Phi Mu put themselves in another hole. See if they can get back here. What did you see on how the team recovered on that crash, Martha?
Well, I think, obviously Theta's near and dear to my heart. I think she's doing a great job getting back where she needs to be. But, you know, it's all about having a presence of mind when something like that happens, no matter where you are and no matter what team you are, because you just have to be alert and figure out, where you need to be.
We're going to take a second look at that crash right now, coming around the first turn. As we see here, trying to find out who initiated the crash. And it looks like there was a slip back there. Might have been,
we had AO Pi down too.
Yeah, a number of the contenders going down. Looked like there were 5, maybe even 6 teams going down.
All right,
there.
we see AO Pi is back, but they're chasing. They're not that far away. They're maybe a quarter lap down from the green jersey.
And so many teams trying to recover from that crash. AO Pi, Phi Mu, Kappa Alpha Theta. Kappa Alpha Theta has maintained a position in the top 5. Delta Gamma right now in second.
There is only a straightaway between Delta Gamma and Theta. Delta Gamma will have to decide if they want to go all out and try to drop them, or if they think they can hold that for the whole race. They are with Ski, so it could be possible, but they'd really have to work together to drop Theta. Theta is rapidly making up time here.
Yeah, Theta clearly trying to make up for lost time there. They're doing an excellent job of it. David Sugarman alongside Caitlin Van Kooten. We have Martha Gillum up here with us in the booth. And before that crash, we were talking about how there was a little bit of pushback initially, where not so much when you tried to create the women's race, but also when you tried to join the men's race.
We've got Theta about to make contact with the back of the main pack here. It's all coming back together.
Well, I'd have to tell you in terms of pushback, it really happened in 1987. There were some people that just didn't want to embrace women at the track. And I think that's where we saw the pushback and I would say a lot of hostility at the track. But I think IU Student Foundation helped us with that, and the Men's Riders Council helped us with that as well. So it was very difficult at first to get ourselves motivated to get out to the track when you face hostility, right? But that didn't last long, and we just wanted to ride, and we're so happy that they created the women's race the next year.
Yeah, well, Martha, we are indebted to you for taking that initiative to set up the race. We all love it. And what do you hope riders take away from it that do it today?
Just to know themselves. I think everybody, when you go through this journey of preparing for this race, I think you learn about yourself. And what happens is then you make better decisions down the road for your whole adult life. And I think if I were to summarize what I got out of it, that helped me tremendously.
I know you have your daughters are here today, yes?
They are.
Twin daughters?
Twin daughters.
If they come to IU, are they obligated to ride in Little 500?
I'm going to tell you yes, but I tell them no.
Would they have to ride for Kappa Alpha Theta, or if they were riding for another team, would that spark some sort of family rivalry?
Well, you know what? One thing I learned about my daughters is they're as competitive as I am. So if they were on different teams, we just want the best person to win. But we all are very competitive. I'd hope they all would ride for Theta and then get 2 more great riders and we get a championship that I never got.
And as we see a fall on an exchange here on the backside for Phi Mu, looks like a rider's being held back to the pit. She seems to be okay. And as we see, coming up on turn 40, lap 42 now, almost halfway through the race. So you see the Sweet Potato Club trailing behind as they enter lap 42 as well. And so that's gonna do it for Martha. Martha, I just want to thank you so much for coming up today, giving us part of your time. We have so much in debt to you. I mean, this weekend and all this fantastic this that we see and the community coming together, these women getting the opportunity that they are, really all goes to you and your friends and teammates. So just thank you so much for all you've done for the university for the weekend, Martha.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Martha. That was Martha Gillum from Kappa, who rode for Kappa Alpha Theta, helped create the first ever women's Little 500. Now we're going down to our pit reporter, Pat White. Pat?
Thanks, David. We saw a big crash right around the finish line a few laps ago, and I talked to both Kappa Alpha Theta and AO Pi, who were both involved in that crash, and they both said that this crash will not hurt them too much. If anything, it will help them focus and push even farther for this race. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Pat. And so talking about that philosophy, both of them said not only will it not hurt them, to a certain degree it almost helps them. Is that just them trying to stay positive, or is that a real philosophy? Is that a real mindset?
I think so. Overcoming adversity can kind of raise your adrenaline like that. But as far as crashes go, it looked pretty minimal. They crashed near the pit. They got up quickly, and we see it all came together when we still have more than 50 laps to go. So I don't think it's going to hurt Theta's chances that they were in that crash, but saying it helped is maybe a stretch.
Now AO Pi comes up in first place. That's looks to be I believe that's trying to tell who that is in second, but that's AO Pi in first place right now.
That is Allie Opal.
Now Opal falls behind.
Taking turns pulling.
Now top 10 still a lot of the usual suspects as we see Kappa Alpha Theta in the white jersey has made up a ton of ground.
We do still have a lot of riders with those leaders. So it'll be interesting to see if we have this many teams make it to lap 80 or if they're going to start stringing it out.
Still green flag conditions with that rain that was coming down quite a bit just a few minutes ago. Slowed down a little bit, still a little bit of a drizzle coming onto the track.
Yeah, you can see the riders sort of talking to each other. They're riding two abreast. Things have slowed down quite a bit.
Now as we see the leaders coming around turn 3 into turn 4, AO Pi still out in front with Opal.
Yeah, I'm sure they are eager to stay to the front and out of trouble. You can see though, she's riding tempo. She's not really stressing herself. She may be in the front, but not working too hard.
You see 45 laps in now.
Interesting, you see Delta, Gamma, and Theta slotted quite a bit back there in the pack. Theta is likely trying to sit in a bit, save some energy.
Yeah, 100 laps. It's really, a lot of this race has to do with endurance. I don't think people always appreciate that. It's not just that the fastest team wins. In fact, oftentimes it's not always the fastest team that wins. There's so much strategy and conserving energy and things along those lines.
There is. You have to be fast that last lap. That's where it counts.
We see the leaderboard here. AO Pi, now AGD out in front, followed by Tier, Alpha Omicron Pi, Delta Gamma, and Alpha Chi Omega rounding out the top 5.
Interesting to see IU Nursing all the way up at the front still. They're not a team we were expecting to see. Great for them.
Yeah, IU Nursing who qualified, I believe, outside the top 25.
And use hashtag Little 500 when tweeting about this weekend's races.
Yeah, IU Nursing were actually called with 3 minutes 11 seconds, so not a great qual. They finished 22nd last year. That was actually their best finish, but here they are.
All right, looks like we see Lori Bignell in there.
Bignell, one half of the Bignell sister duo from Delta Gamma we talked about at the top of the race. This is Lori, the little sister's first race. You see Lori coming out. She stays out in front of.
So it looks like she is trying to do a burn, but Theta has caught her wheel. And they have marked the younger Bignell sister here.
Yeah, smart move here by Theta. Now
All
she
right,
is going
we
to
see
burn
Theta
out.
off the front a little bit.
And Theta now fully recovered from that crash, taking back first place as we are just shy of the halfway mark of this race.
This is really interesting. Unclear if Theta is going for it, trying to get away, or if they are just trying to stress the pack a little bit. But right now the pace is really picking up. We are going to see some of those tri and double colored jerseys dropping out of the pack.
Yeah, the pack's certainly going to start to thin out in the next few laps. Be interesting to see how it goes. IU Nursing just behind DG right now.
All
see
right.
if they can keep pace.
Theta is coming out for the exchange. We've got exchanges for Teeter Ski and AO Pi. Theta has set a great move here to get this race thinned out. DG's right behind him. Okay, we have Theta and DG together at the front. Ski is at the back of the pack and will be trying to work around to catch him. About a quarter lap back, we have AO Pi. Nothing too bad to catch after an exchange, but they'll have to work for it.
We see the leaders trying to take control. Your alma mater, Teeter, not far behind.
They
off the pack.
are. They are still hanging in there. I love that bright pink they have.
Teeter, who crawled 7th.
That looks like Kinsey Allen on the, or sorry, that might be Chase. No, that is Kinsey Allen on the bike.
And we just found out what happened earlier with FIMU. There was a fall, and we mentioned Katie Kapusta earlier. She's going to be out of the rest of the race with a cracked helmet. You hate to see that. We talked about in the broadcast that while we can't control, we'd really like to see a safe race. And unfortunately, Katie, she's a senior. This is going to be her last race, and unfortunately, it's going to be cut short.
Yeah, we see Lexi Kohler, who had a crash last year, coming in with the exchange for her teammate. Great burnout there. They look like they are going for best dressed on the track. All right, they slid right back into the front of the pack, and everyone is together now.
So now over halfway through this one, 52 laps in. Like we just said, FIMU, who was considered a dark horse contender, just lost one of their seniors and a great rider in Katie Kapusta. She's out with a cracked helmet, and it's worth noting, when a rider goes out, the only people that are allowed to ride are the 4 riders that go on that final list. If somebody gets hurt or if there's a cracked helmet, like in this case, there is no substitution, which can really affect you and your strategy if you're going from 4 to 3 or 3 to 2, whatever the case might be.
Absolutely, that changes your rotation. So you have less time to recover between every set. And each set really is, it's a sprint set because you're gonna sprint to catch the pack when you get in from the exchange, and you're really gonna sprint hard on your burnout. So it takes time to recover from those sets, especially if you're in when the lap pace is really fast. Right now, we're looking like we're more than 2 abreast, and it's quite slow. So Theta sort of threw down a move, and now everyone's sizing each other up to see what's going to happen next, right here at 53 laps.
We see here coming around turn 4. Delta Gamma sitting in 3rd. They finished 2nd a year ago.
Wow, we've also seen Kappa Delta up in the front quite a bit. They are that team in light gray.
Yeah, Kappa Delta, sponsored by Canary Cyclewear. They qualified 11th, started in row 4, but they made their way up to the front of the pack. Gotta believe the crashes have something to do with that. They have not taken out any of the leaders, but they've certainly slowed them down a bit. And now, of course, Chuck Crabb has been the PA announcer for this race for a long time. We've got a little bit more on him. For that, let's check out our piece on Chuck Crabb.
Good afternoon, bicycle racing fans. Welcome to the nation's premier collegiate bicycle racing event. Indiana University Student Foundation proudly presents the Little 500.
That first year was quite an experience because for a couple of years was a volunteer. Seeing it from that operation where everybody would score in pencil, put them in order, and I'd read the times. when the riders cross the start-finish line, that gives you an unbelievable ability to sort through and make sure that lapped bikes are in the right position and you don't have the wrong team up in the lead. It's really a rather intense 3 hours, a lot of concentration.
As we get ready to meet the teams in today's race, a word about how they earned their starting positions. A team's participation in the race and its place in the starting grid are determined by qualifications.
And I've enjoyed now, let's see, it'd be 29 women's races and 37 men's races going back. Announcing the race itself, the 1 hour for the women and the 2 hour for the men. You're a ringmaster, you're coordinating what's happening. A lot of rapid changes that take place during the course of the race. You know, the last few years we've had some accidents in the last lap or two, maybe exchanges of riders, of bikes, things that totally change the dynamics of who's in front, who's in second, and it truly is the race for the checkered flag whenever you reach that point, and trying to stay on top of that is a challenge.
Fantastic piece there on Chuck Crab. Welcome back to the race. David Sugarman alongside Caitlin Van Kooten as we welcome back here just shy of 60 laps, 58, excuse me, right now. And going back to that piece, just Chuck Crab, really a staple, not just the Little 500, but all of Indiana athletics. Anybody who's gone to an IU sporting event can attest to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome voice at every event. We have some developments here. Ski has made a move and has a bit of a gap on the pack, and Theta's up there with them. So it looks like Ski and Theta may be trying to work together to put DG away.
Yeah, I believe that's big.
DG is only a little bit quarter lap back, but she is stuck behind some lap traffic.
And you can see she's breaking to the outside, trying to get away from that, and then maybe she'll come back in. Right now she's going way to the outside, trying to get back on track.
Absolutely. It looks like Ski and Theta are not committing to this move, though. The pack is slowly pulling them back in. Actually, not so slowly. We see the charge being led by Alpha Chi Omega, followed by AO Pi, and we've got Teeter, and DG is right there, too.
Yeah, and ASA, who just made the exchange, looked like they were in the lead for a moment. ASA, just their 5th year riding, but had a 10th place finish last year, so they'd love to finish top 10. We see here now 60 laps in. Kappa Alpha Theta first with Ski and AO Pi right there. Now AO Pi takes the lead right back. So now just 40 laps to go. This race going by quick, and really just speaks to, you know, when you talk about this race, these women go all year round. And I thought it was interesting. We were talking to the ski club team before the race, and they were saying that while the race is 25 miles, or just a titch over 25 miles, they'll go out on a ride that's 30 miles as a warm-up sometimes.
Absolutely. 25 miles is a pretty casual ride on the road. So they're doing 30, 40-mile rides and 50 or 60-mile rides on the weekend.
So the ski club clearly not phased. 61 laps in now is AO Pi.
Yeah,
takes a short lead.
That was interesting. You see them trying to do the burnout right off the front, but you see Ski was right behind them and is just riding that burnout.
Yeah, you mentioned Ski coming up right next to Alpha Omicron Pi now. Ski, who's really come on strong in the last few years, but is yet to win a Little 500. So we see an exchange here coming from Ski and from AO Pi. As Teeter is taking the lead, much to the joy of Caitlin up here in the booth. I know you're supposed to be impartial today, but you still got to root Teeter a little bit, no?
Yeah, it is great to see them doing well.
So Teeter, who started off in the 7th position today. Teeter now falling just behind Delta Gamma. Delta Gamma in the green, Teeter in the hot pink. And now Delta Gamma with Teeter just behind them. Alpha Chi Omega just behind them. AO Pi, Ski, Kappa Alpha Theta. A lot of the regular cast of characters that we suspected would be in the leaderboard still here, over 60% of the way into this one. So now it looks like Alpha Chi Omega making a move past AO Pi.
Yeah, this is really fast and strung out now. Everyone's trying to put pressure on the other teams.
It looks like AKIO here going for a burnout. Burnout, here comes the exchange, and they got to get right back on the bike and catch up. Slower exchange there, but certainly a clean one, and AKIO going to have to make their way back. Teeter still out in front in first place right now. Now we see Crew coming around the outside. They're going for a burnout. I mentioned Crew qualified 6th, but went for a different position than we normally see that a top team would choose for their pit. A quick exchange there for Crew. Crew rocking the orange. Delta Gamma on the inside. They're first right now. Teeter just behind them. Now Delta Gamma crosses, and we're 65 laps in.
Yeah, and I think we made a mistake earlier. That blue jersey with the IU tried on the shorts, that's actually Alpha Gamma Delta. They are the ones still in the lead pack, and I don't believe IU Nursing is on the lead pack anymore.
Now 65 laps in. So we talked about earlier the help me to help you mentality that a lot of the riders use. Now we're headed into the latter part of that race. When does that start to go away? Because at some point, help me to help you, but we're all trying to win.
That is true. So it looks like they're all trying to put a little bit of pressure on each other by keeping it strung out and fast. Certainly a result none of these top teams who've been training really hard want to see is a slow race where we have a 10 or 15 field sprint, because at that point it could be more luck than anything if you have that many people in a sprint.
And now we're going to throw it down to our pit reporter, Pat White, who's got the IUSF Steering Committee President, Ann Broach.
Thanks, David. And yes, I'm here with IUSF Steering Committee Annie Broach. And Annie, what work do you as a president really have to put in to make this race possible?
So as president, I preside over the steering committee, which is the executive board of the Student Foundation. Together, we take all the parts and pieces as a whole that come together to make the race. So I am kind of facilitate all the different committee work, and also the gunners. The gunners are the juniors who are vying to be on the steering committee. They're running around in red and khaki, so I'm in charge of them. Basically, my job is mostly big picture, but I love to get my hands dirty when I can.
Awesome, and we have to talk about the pants that you are wearing right now. Yeah, talk to me a little bit about those pants.
Sure. So these pants were actually originally worn by Bill Armstrong of Bill Armstrong Stadium. He's one of the co-founders of the Student Foundation, and him and Howdy Wilcox each had a pair of these made. And ever since, this pair particularly has been passed down to the Student Foundation president. So they've been taken in a little bit from their original size, but they still represent a whole lot of special things to the Student Foundation and the university in general. So
awesome. Yeah, they're very special and they look absolutely amazing. So thank you very much, Annie.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thanks so much, Pat. You talk about the candy stripe pants being a tradition. Those are some really great pants. I might need to ditch the broadcast booth, go be a gunner, join the steering committee.
Absolutely.
And I think it's worth mentioning that while the focus is on the riders today, as it should be, there is so many people behind the scenes and so many of them students that go into making this race, and this entire weekend is what it is. And it's really a fantastic job by the steering committee and everyone involved.
Absolutely. The IUSF students put in a ton of time to make this event happen.
Of course, the leader of all those is Andrea Balzano, a first-year race director. Really, it was interesting. She said she got her dream job at 25, and she doesn't know how long she's going to hold on to it. But to have your dream job at 25, that's pretty darn good.
That's fantastic.
As we're coming around lap 69 right now, almost 7/10 of the way through this race. As we see an exchange being ready to mate here. Trying to see who that is.
Wow. Theta's
And that was
got,
Alpha Chi Omega with the exchange.
yeah, it looks like they marked Alpha Chi Omega's exchange, and now Theta's got a little bit of separation. If you were gonna go and try to maintain a gap, this would be a time to do it. And Theta probably has the best set of IT tiers. You just have to consider whether you can hold off the pack. It takes a lot of guts to try to do that, but I hope they're going for it. He's asking her, coach is asking her to do one more. You saw she was trying to make a move to do an exchange, but she slid back to the inside lane.
Kappa Alpha Theta.
They now have a quarter lap on Ski and Teeter and possibly like half a turn on DG.
And it shows you just how quick that this race can change. Just a few laps ago, we were talking about how close the leaders were and how it was, they were strung out like they were. Like I said, now Kappa Alpha Theta trying to put a little bit of separation in here. And it looks like here comes exchange for Kappa Alpha Theta as well as Alpha Omicron Pi.
Yeah, this is when we're at lap 71. This is when you'll see the teams really trying to attack the other teams on the exchanges.
And the exchange now made. Kappa Alpha Theta trying to stay out in front after it.
DG has really responded. AKO's right there with them.
Now 72 laps in, 51 minutes have passed. The fastest time ever was actually a team called Beyond Control in 1989. They had 1 hour and 6 minutes and 0.58 seconds.
Just such a great name for a team.
Beyond Control. It really is quite a catchy name, Beyond Control. Unfortunately, not in the race anymore, but it is quite creative. It's no Sweet Potato Club, but it's not bad.
You do love them. Wow, this is interesting. It looked like DG was getting close to making contact with them, but they've sort of faded away, and it looks like Theta is really pushing this advantage they have.
Yeah, as we come in to the latter part of this race, 27 laps to go, and Theta maybe starting to flex their muscle a little bit here. Still a lot of race to be had, though. Delta Gamma in third place right now.
Interesting, their pit looks really pretty calm. It seems like this may have been a plan all along.
See, Kappa Alpha Theta now with a good maybe quarter lap, almost even half a lap lead right now. Delta Gamma with some ground to make up as they come here on this straightaway. Be interesting to see how long they're willing to stay back here, if they can keep it at this type of spacing, or if they want to make up that ground sooner than later. As we can see here, Delta Gamma getting ready to make an exchange, as is Teeter.
Yeah, this is interesting because they could possibly hold this to the end, but if they don't hold it, they'll put a tremendous amount of pressure on the other teams and really warn them out for the spring.
And Teeter actually waved off their exchange, so they're going to stay on the track. Not the cleanest exchange in the world, but Delta Gamma able to maintain their spot. You see they might have an injury down there in the pit on Delta Gamma. Couldn't see who it was getting off the bike. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, we've got Lori Bignell in for Delta Gamma.
It looks like, not really sure if it's an injury, but I think she's just gassed, and rightfully so. That was a really great set there. Now 75 laps in, and it all comes down to the next 25 laps. Kappa Alpha Theta still out in front.
They have really thrown a gauntlet down here.
Behind
so
her.
We've got Kappa Alpha Theta. We have a half turn back. I see Ski and AKO. And then another half turn back, I see Delta Gamma. They're trying to race to make contact with AKO and Ski again.
And at this point, because we've seen different teams swap the lead throughout the day, and a few different teams have had a quarter or so lap lead, this might be the biggest that we've seen so far. At what point do you say that if you're behind Kappa Alpha Theta, that's too big of a lead, we might not be able to make that up?
They are saying that now. The pits are really animated. They're pulling for people to come in fast. They are trying to close this down because we are getting into a dangerous zone for any other team that's not Kappa Alpha Theta. Look at Theta. They seem relaxed. They don't seem that taxed.
We see Kappa Delta now making an exchange. So you're saying a lot of these top teams who, as we see even Jim Kirkham be very animated in the ski pit right now, maybe starting to hit the panic button.
Absolutely.
And so now just 23 laps to go. Like we said, Kappa Alpha Theta starting to come down here.
She is not letting up. I am loving this from Rachel Brown. You can see she is going all out. She's trying to really suffer and put in more distance. She's got about a straightaway, and Delta Gamma is trying really hard. Yep, I see they've gone ahead and put another rider in their pit. It looks like this is Sydney Keaton.
Sydney Keaton getting ready to grab the exchange when Kappa Alpha Theta comes around. They're still just coming around turn 3 now. Theta going to make an exchange as well. And now here comes Kappa Alpha Theta on the exchange. And the exchange is clean and it is effortless. Beautiful job there by Kappa Alpha Theta.
Wow, so they're already through turn 1. DG, Aopai, and Ski just went through our start-finish line.
Yeah, Teeter, who we saw start in 7th, was in first there for a few laps, but just made an exchange, and they've fallen off the leader pack just a little bit. So we are now in lap 79 of 100.
Theta's looking Teeter's looking a little bit tired. It looks like they may have lost contact with this lead group. They'll really have to work hard to make contact with DG, Ski, and Aopai if they want to stay in the race.
Well, this rainy Friday afternoon here at Bill Armstrong Stadium, the 30th running of the Women's Little 500, brought to you by the Indiana University Student Foundation. David Sugarman alongside two-time champion Caitlin Van Kooten, as we see Delta Gamma making an exchange there. Kappa Alpha Theta has really, the last 10 or so laps, flexed their muscle on this race and is doing a great job out in front right now. And like you said, continuing to put the pedal to the metal, not letting up and resting because they have the lead. The exact opposite, in fact.
Absolutely. If you're in this position, you've got to get your head in the game and tap out your own rhythm. Go as hard as you can and try to grow that lead. It's a real psychological thing. Once Theta is around the turn of 1 and the pack was just coming out of 4, once the pack can no longer see that lead rider, it changes the race psychologically. They stop chasing quite as hard. So Theta really has an opportunity to run away with it.
Kappa Alpha Theta, who's donning the white jersey after winning Spring Series. Kappa Alpha Theta, one of the leaders, a 6-time champion. Of course, last year they were going for a 3-peat and lost. They came in 4th place, but this is a team that we talked about at the top of the broadcast. Historically, I feel like whenever they're talking about teams that are going to finish first, they're always in the discussion. 26 top 5 finishes. Put that in perspective, over 85% of the time, they finished in the top 5.
Absolutely.
Now, lap 82 coming around. We see, you mentioned the Ski Club. They started today in 4th. Still a outside chance here. We go down to Pat White, our pit reporter, for more on the Ski Club. And no Pat just right now.
They are going to be in the zone trying to catch. I don't think they have time to talk to us at the moment.
Absolutely, and you almost admired the honesty when we were talking to teams before the race. Hey, do you think you might be available for an interview? Some teams just said, no, I am in the zone. There is no talk. I'll talk to you after the race when we're raising the trophy. But during the race, it is all business, and you really got to appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you get out here, it just goes so fast. It feels like the race starts and suddenly you're at 50, and here we are at lap 83.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it before the broadcast. The idea of you have to bring your A game. We talk about Division I basketball player. They have an off night opening night. They get 30, 40 more tries. Even football, you get 12 games. In the little 500, men or women, you train for a year, and if you have an off day, that's your only day until the next year, and especially hurts if you're a senior. And we've seen really all the leaders bring their A stuff today, Caitlin.
Absolutely. Theta is nearly a half lap up on the pack. It looks like we have Aopai, DG, and Ski, and Akaio working together. But they aren't. This is the thing that happens with the pack. it's 4 riders with 4 different minds. They're not working as seamlessly as that one Theta rider going all out as she can. Because none of those teams chasing Theta wants to do all the work. So they're still trying to negotiate who's going to really pull and respond. So we've got DG on the front trying to do their best. It seems like they're making up a little bit of ground, but they're still quite a ways ahead.
Yeah, DG coming around turn 1 right now. In second place, Kappa Alpha Theta. Looks like they're already coming around turn 3 here. We're on lap 85, so just 15 minutes left to go. Caitlin, I can tell the excitement. We don't have a camera on us right now, but bouncing up and down here in the booth. I know it's a little bit chilly, but you're not just trying to stay warm.
It's cold, it's both, but yeah, this is exciting. It's hard to know what's going to happen. But I tell you, those Theta riders, they look calm. They look like they are going fast, but they're not fully taxing themselves.
And I will say, you mentioned the sense of calmness right now. They look like a team that has been here before and know what they're doing.
Yeah, we just had DG exchange. They are trying to get a fresh rider in to help the cause of the pack. But it looks like Aopai and Ski is not going to wait for DG. They've got a mouse to catch, and they got to go get her.
We see Kappa Alpha Theta now crossing the finish line once more. Lap 87 now is where the leader is.
Yeah, that is their captain, Evelyn Malcolm. What a way to go out your senior year. Aopai is calling for the exchange. They're getting a fresh rider to try to chase. But
so a number of teams getting ready for exchange here. Teeter just made one. Kappa Alpha Theta getting ready. Looked like Akai was thinking about it, and then coach pulled back the rider. So now Theta getting ready for an exchange.
Absolutely. When you're in this flat out pace where you're trying to time trial and catch, you want to try to limit your exchanges. You want to have the riders go as long as they can while sustaining their fastest pace.
We see Kappa Alpha Theta making the exchange there, right back on the bike.
Oh, Ski is by themselves, creeping up on Theta. It's Megan Hubricks out there. She's just a turn behind them.
Yeah, Hubricks getting away from the rest of the pack. Delta Gamma still back there. It looks like third place. Akaio trailing just behind them. Aopai right behind them. So right now, that's the top 5. Kappa Alpha Theta, Ski, Delta Gamma, Alpha Chi Omega, and Aopai. Ski is getting ready for an exchange. They're in pit 5, just around turn 1. We see Kappa Delta making an exchange as well. Delta Gamma getting ready for an exchange.
All right, that is Emily Carrico going in. Their top senior rider. She's coming to the pit. She's going to need to get on her bike and try to cool down and go in for her next set to catch this Theta team.
So now 89 laps in, coming down the home stretch of this one. Everybody trying to catch Kappa Delta right now. Kappa Alpha Theta.
And the time to do so is rapidly evaporating. Teams that want to catch have got to make their move.
Now we're going to send it down to a pit reporter, Pat White, for a little info on the ski team. Pat.
Ski Club biker Ivy Moore is competing in her first Little 500 this year. After last year, she was held out due to medical reasons, and I talked to Ivy, who just got off the bike a little moment ago, and she said that it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot harder than she expected. And right now, Ski Club's goal is to catch Theta. Back to you guys.
Thanks so much, Pat. Mentioned the ski club in the top 5 right now. They were just in second a little bit ago, and it was a great hit there on Ivy.
Yeah, that first race, it almost doesn't matter how it goes. It's just such a fun experience.
Now, less than 10 laps to go here. We're 1 hour and 4 minutes into this one. It's been a quick race. We mentioned, I don't know that they'll get the record today. The record is, of course, 1 hour, 6 minutes, and about 0.58 seconds. But it's been a quick race.
Yeah, it really has. And Theta is not slowing their pace at all. With this, they just have 2 more rotations to go through if they do 5-lap sets, and they are going to be bringing home the yellow to the team next year.
Delta Gamma getting ready for an exchange in pit 1. Kappa Alpha Theta still in the lead. We see a couple more exchanges here. Delta Gamma, the ski club, and I believe that's we see a collision there, but Delta Gamma with the clean exchange.
This is going to be interesting. Teams are going to have to start deciding whether they're still going for that first place finish or they want to line up for that second place sprint.
We see now just 8 laps to go in this one. Here comes Kappa Alpha Theta.
And
AOPI just behind them, right on that back wheel, and now we might be having a little bit more fun here down the stretch, Caitlin.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they have made contact, but I don't think Theta's going to stop. They're going to like their chances sprinting against AOPI much more than they want to sprint against Bignell.
AOPI, who's improved so much since 2013 when they finished 24th. They have catapulted themselves to the first top 5 finish a year ago, and now here they are with less than 10 laps to go in second place, just behind Kappa Alpha Theta.
Wow, how did they sneak up there in that neon?
Now both teams cross. Now, so 6 laps to go in this one. Kappa Alpha Theta and AOPI duking it out. Almost 1 hour and 6 minutes in.
Oh, wow. What we'd hate to see is for them to slow up in the pack catch and that big effort to be for naught.
AOPI making a move, and now they're out in front. Alpha Omicron Pi takes the lead over Kappa Alpha Theta right there.
It looks like they're attempting to make an exchange, so it'll be interesting to see whether Theta is able to just blow by. They're also exchanging. They're going to work together and try to pull together.
Both teams making the exchange. Ski Club thinking about it, not quite yet.
Oh, we have a bike down, but she got it recovered quickly. Theta, AOPI right together.
And a beautiful recovery there that could have been disastrous there in pit 3 for AOPI, but they maintain the lead on the exchange. 5 laps to go. AOPI just inches in front of Kappa Alpha Theta right now.
Oh, and what a great move of AOPI to pull through. Oh, we have an AOPI rider. We saw her on the floor of the pit just trying to recover all out exhaustion from that effort. But AOPI just riding like they are champions, pulling through and taking their turn at the front. They are not going to let this come together as a sprint. They're going to work with Theta, and Theta and AOPI are going to stay out front. It looks like they're coming up on Teeter, who will then be a lap down.
Alpha Omicron Pi still just out in front of Kappa Alpha Theta. We saw that last exchange did not go smoothly, but as we look towards the pit, they're getting ready to make another exchange, it looks like. With just 4 laps to go. Teeter getting ready to make their exchange.
All right, but the pressure is not off. DG is maybe only a quarter lap back. They cannot stop at all. So if Theta and AOPI pause it all to negotiate who's going to pull, they're going to lose this lead.
AOPI burning out, coming in for the exchange. This one goes smoother. Teeter looked like they got in their way a little bit. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but AOPI falls back, and now Kappa Alpha Theta with a good quarter lap lead right now with just 3 laps to go.
Theta will not wait for AOPI, and now that they have only...
Sprinter on the bike for the last 2 laps for the Theta.
Theta getting ready to make an exchange as well with just 3 laps to go. Kappa Alpha Theta coming around turn 4.
AOPI also coming out of turn 4, hot on their tail. The pressure is not off on Theta.
Kappa Alpha Theta making the exchange. You can see how animated the AOPI pit is right now. They need her to pick it up on the bike. Here she comes.
Theta had just a slightly botched exchange there. They didn't drop it, but it was slightly fumbled, so AOPI is ahead, but Theta is catching quickly. AOPI really put in a big effort when they were pulling with Theta, and this Theta rider is fresh. There's no way AOPI will be able to exchange again and not have Theta go off the front.
Just 2 laps to go here.
Theta! They are not even going to try to draft. They are going around left.
Here comes the white flag. 1 lap to go. Kappa Alpha Theta out in front.
Oh! AO Pi is digging deep, trying to stay, but she just can't do it. Theta has more power.
Theta coming around turn 2, now into turn 3. AO Pi trying to make up ground. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to do it. Kappa Alpha Theta looking to win their 3rd race in the last 4 years. Here they come, the checkered flag. It's out of the holster. Kappa Alpha Theta cruises their way to victory in the 30th Women's Little 500. Kappa Alpha Theta, have yourself a day.
Oh, and a great finish for AO Pi with 2nd. And I believe we saw Delta Gamma come through with 3rd.
Rounding out the top 5, Alpha Chi Omega, the Ski Club coming in 5th. Bellanzana, who started, I believe, between 15 and 20 in 6th place. Kappa Delta 7, Teeter in 8th. FIMU in 9th, despite losing senior Katie Kapusta in the middle of the race. 10th, Alpha Gamma Delta. But so finishing there in 1st, Kappa Alpha Theta. They were going for the 3-peat last year, couldn't get it, but 3 out of 4 years is still not too shabby, Caitlin.
What a great race. That was fantastic.
We see some teams still trying to finish out the race there. We saw Kappa Alpha Theta, while there was a little bit of back and forth between them and Alpha Omicron Pi, those last maybe 5 to 10 laps, it seemed like through the second half of the race, Kappa Alpha Theta really just kind of dominated and showed that they were the best team there, and Alpha AO Pi just became a little pesky.
Look how tired our Theta rider is, coming into her pit to celebrate with their teammates.
And as we see the celebration now for Kappa Alpha Theta, well deserved. A year's worth of work, and that's what it can lead to. A 1st place finish here in the 30th Women's Little 500. So we see Kappa Alpha Theta wins their 7th race overall.
Oh, wow.
Believe that is the most out of any of the women's teams in the field.
We now see AO Pi welcoming home their 4th rider. They didn't win, but so excited to be there for 2nd. What a great tradition this team has started.
And you can see the emotions flooding out on all these teams. You can see the 2 Delta Gamma riders embracing. And while 2nd and 3rd place is fantastic, there is the flip side of the coin. While that only one team can be the winner, that is Kappa Alpha Theta. Pat White is with them down in the pit. Pat.
Here with Grace Bennett and Evelyn Malcolm, 2017 Little 500 Women's Champions. How does it feel?
Amazing. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. They gave me every opportunity. I just can't believe it. She was so ready, and she did it just like she knew she would. Hell yeah.
Grace, your senior year, how does it feel going out with this?
Surreal. I honestly can't believe it. I just can't thank my teammates enough for, I didn't think I had it, and they told me I did. I can't believe it stopped. Oh my God. And I'm just so happy that we were able to do this together.
Awesome. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Pat. And we can see, we talked to Kappa Alpha Theta before the race, and they were so cool and calm and collected, and now they can let all that emotion out that was clearly bubbling just below the surface. Kappa Alpha Theta, I mean, can you talk about, you can clearly relate to what they're going through. What is that feeling like after you've won, after all the work is finally behind you, and clearly it has been worth it? Talk about what Kappa Alpha Theta is going through emotionally right now as we see the sorority sisters storming the track.
It's hard to describe. It is the best feeling.
So we see the rest of the Kappa Alpha Theta sorority coming out onto the track to join their sisters.
Oh, wow.
We can see here AO Pi in 2nd place, and a team to look out for going forward. A few years ago, not a lot of people considered AO Pi a top team. A top 5 finish last year for the very first time. They came in 2nd and weren't that far off Kappa Alpha Theta's wheels. AO Pi, a team to watch out for going forward, Caitlin.
Absolutely, I agree. And you see how much all these teams respect each other, hugs all around.
And Pat White down on the field with Kappa Alpha Theta's coach, Pat.
That was awesome, huh? That was pretty sick.
Here with Kappa Alpha Theta coach. Coach, how does it feel?
Pretty amazing. I'm glad the girls get to experience this moment because it's second to none. So I'm really happy that the girls get to have this opportunity.
Now, did the strategy get executed about as perfect as it could have been?
Yeah, obviously it kind of changed things a little bit when the other team came up to us in the last 10 laps. We would have liked to have gotten away solo from, further out. But yeah, that was definitely a little bit of a wrench in the process. But yeah, it was. We wanted to race aggressive, and I thought we had the depth of team to pull that off. But race day is always a totally different animal. You can think whatever you want, and we've had great teams in the past that couldn't pull this feat off of getting away solo. So it is definitely something very hard to do. So I'm just happy the girls, finally got to pull it off in that style.
Absolutely. And Grace, the senior, how awesome is that for her to go out like this?
She's legendary. She is such a gifted individual. But we only got her as a junior, so this is only her second race. So our main task was getting her up to speed and understanding the bike race. The physical ability has always been there, but the main issue was getting her to understand the flow of the bike race. And obviously she made great moves today and had great instinct. It was pretty special, and the best part was they were all, at their limit, not really able to push. They were at the bottom of the barrel. They were out of energy, but you only have 4 girls, and you can only you got to put them in. And so I just asked them to dig deep, and hopefully they can hold that gap. And I think everybody finishes totally destroyed. They're all wrecked, but at least it was for a good cause,
Absolutely, and congratulations, Coach. Go celebrate. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Pat. As now we see Delta Gamma posing for photos on the podium with their 3rd place finish. They'll be back there and hunting for first place next year, as they always are, Delta Gamma. Like we said, we thought it might come down to Kappa Alpha Theta and Delta Gamma, and we were pretty close. Kappa Alpha Theta coming in first, Delta Gamma coming in 3rd, and between them is Alpha Omicron Pi, who now takes the podium for their photo.
They've got to feel great about this finish. They clearly gave it everything they had and left nothing out on the field.
Alpha Omicron Pi, who finished 5th last year. Their only top 5 finish before this, of course. Their first appearance on the podium. And soon we'll meet the new little 500 champions, Kappa Alpha Theta, their sorority, standing at the finish line waiting in anticipation. I got a feeling they're going to make a little noise down there on the track.
Yeah, we will see the traditional celebratory lap of the field. Here they come.
Kappa Alpha Theta taking their turn on the podium, saving the best for last, raising their arms in victory. Well deserved.
Shaking up the Coke. Unclear what she's going to do there.
Kappa Alpha Theta having a little bit of fun there, shaking around the Coke. I think it's well deserved. And the trophy is raised, and a new champion is crowned. Kappa Alpha Theta back on top for the 7th time in Little 500 history.
Kisses for the trophy. All right, next up are the more traditional trophies. Oh, first we'll do the bike raise.
Kappa Alpha Theta getting ready to raise the bike.
They want to do it all at once.
And there it is. The Schwinn bicycle is raised. Just over an hour ago, they mounted them, and now one team gets to put theirs high above their heads, above everybody else's. This year, that'll be Kappa Alpha Theta. Donning the white jersey. You knew they'd have a chance to be here. They won Spring Series. 4th place a year ago. And now, getting a chance to raise several trophies, several bikes.
They're posing there with the Borg Warner trophy. All the winners' names are inscribed on the bottom of that trophy.
As the rain continues to come down, it will not dampen Kappa Alpha Theta's celebration, I can promise you that much. Final time of the race, 1 minute 11 1 hour. That would be a pretty quick race. 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 0.08 seconds. So a pretty speedy race, as we mentioned throughout. It felt like it was going by quick. Not all that close to that fastest time that I touched on earlier, which was just under an hour 7, but still quite a quick race.
Yeah, we had no yellow flags during this race. Normally during a race, there's at least a couple, which slows down the pace dramatically. So this really did go by much faster than usual.
And there were a couple of crashes that affected the leaders, including Kappa Alpha Theta. And
I know.
That really shows, you talked about fighting through the adversity. We went down to Pat early. He even said, both AOPI, Kappa Alpha Theta, they said, no, it's just going to motivate us more. We scoffed at it a little bit, but those were the teams that it came down to. So hats off to both Kappa Alpha Theta and AOPI, who came in 1st and 2nd.
Yeah, what do I know? Maybe it did help them. What a tremendous finish.
Well, I think the 2 rings on your finger would apply. You know a couple of things. So, Caitlin, just talk to me a little bit right now as Kappa Alpha Theta exits the podium. What is that feeling like to raise that trophy, to raise that bike? You got to do it twice, and just to see your sorority or your group and your fans rejoicing for you like this.
Yeah, it's a blur. Teeter's actually always been sponsored by Girls Inc., so we had the fun advantage of having 40 screaming little girls super excited, in addition to all our family and friends. So we had quite the big victory lap, but we were a lot like Theta was right there, where they are just having a blast up there on the podium.
And how much, I guess, sweeter was it when you got back there that second time? You knew how hard it was to do it just once. To do it a second time, can you describe that a little bit for me, going back to back, and just how difficult that is?
Yeah, if you have returning riders, it can definitely be done. So I know they are graduating a few riders from Theta, so that we'll see, but I'm sure they'll rebuild. You can definitely, once you've done it once, you know how to control the race and react to it in real time.
It's been an absolutely phenomenal race. Kappa Alpha Theta coming in 1st place here today. For everybody involved in the production, thank you. And everybody watching today, thank you. We'll be back at it tomorrow for the men's race. Josh Eastern, Jordan Bailey, and Eddie Kooten. Special thanks to Martha Gilling coming on for the broadcast earlier. For Caitlin Van Kooten, I'm David Sugarman. This has been the 30th running of the Women's Little 500.